what's up, everybody? Welcome to Dharma Time. I'm your host, as always, the Dharma Guy, and I got some people with me. Let's start out with our normal co-host. What's up there, the Duke Doctor?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well, actually. Doing well. Kind of
Yeah,
excited for today's show, to be honest with you.
awesome.
Well, only mainly because it's not coronavirus related. So I'm excited to talk about something other than coronavirus.
Why am I seeing? Well, first of all, the sound sucks today,
Yes, the sound sucks a
and
lot today.
and two, I see like closed captioning.
That
Like
I don't know.
everything we're saying is actually turning into words. It's almost like the FBI and CIA knew we were going to talk about this today,
Yeah, right.
and so they're getting a transcript.
Well, let's go ahead and introduce our guest real quick. We want to put her up on here. What's up, Dr. Barbosa?
Hey, how you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. So, but yeah, so real quickly, this is Dr. Barbosa. She is what we would consider to be one of the best doctors here in Orlando. Not only because of her medical practice, but just who she is in general as a person. She is very insightful. She brings more to the table than just her medical expertise. We've had her on the Couch Live, and we've also interacted with her numerous times in different things throughout Orlando and the addiction world that we're involved in. And every time we speak to her, she always seems as a very level head, very insightful, but also not afraid to kind of say what she thinks. You know, even if it's going to not necessarily match up to what you think. So we thought she would be a fantastic guest for today's show, and so welcome, Dr. Barbosa.
Awesome. You know what? Today is going to be interesting.
It
So
is. It
I'm
is.
ready for the discussion.
Well, what I do like though is when I first messaged you about it, you said your husband saw the topic and wasn't sure about it, which I think is awesome though. But that to me is kind of indicative of where we're at, right? And what this conversation is all about. It's a very touchy thing, and I think that just the words themselves lend themselves to everybody having an opinion of some sort. It's very polarizing in some cases. And for those people who know myself and Louis know that we'll probably make this as non-polarizing as possible. But we do have opinions, obviously, and but I just think that first and foremost, I wanted to come up with something that was not coronavirus related. I think at this point, people are kind of coronavirused out, if you will. I know I am. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of talking about it. Unless something major takes place, I'd rather talk about life because that's still going on. Last I checked. And then I know that somebody I'm connected with posted a blog the other day in reference to this particular subject. And so it got me to thinking, and then I started asking some questions, and it wasn't as black and white as I was hoping it would have been. It was much more gray. And so I was like, well, what a great subject to talk about. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Why don't we bring that dude on also?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't want him to feel like we're attacking because that's obviously not what we're doing. And I didn't get a chance to reach out to him ahead of time. So maybe we'll have him on next week or something. We'll see.
Yeah, but then if we would have accidentally attacked him, then he could have said, "See right there, that's
This is
toxic
toxic.
masculinity." He would have proved his point, and therefore, he would
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Well, on a side note, before we do get started, a couple of house cleaning things to do. Number one, y'all don't hear the little fan in the background because I replaced it. Thank you very much. Yes, my
Yeah.
daughter
Now
now
you
has
just
a.
gotta paint the top of
That's
the
not
right
going to
there
happen,
on the
brother.
ceiling.
That is
You
not
gotta
going to
paint
happen.
that top edge.
Not going to happen. And then, as always, if you or anybody you know is struggling with the disease of addiction, right behind the dope doctor there is our phone number and our website. Phone number being 833 Now Matters. That's 833 Now Matters. Our website being nowmattersmore.org. And once again, if you or anybody you know is struggling and you need help, you can reach out to us and we will help you. Or if you want to just donate, by all means, hit that donate button and we will gladly take that and help somebody with it. And then lastly but not least, my son is 9 years old today. He's not going to watch this, of course,
Yay!
but happy birthday anyways. He's very excited. He's been telling me every day for the last week how many days it was until his birthday. He even texted me this morning and asked me what time he was born because he wanted to know the exact time. I'm like, all right, buddy.
Did
So
you remember?
yeah, 5:53. But anyway, I have it all written down, bro. Like I'm not gonna act like I'm that guy because I'm not.
Happy
I,
Cinco de Mayo to you.
Yeah, that's right. Cinco de Mayo, and it falls on a Taco Tuesday. So can it get any better than that? Right on. I'm gonna have some quesadillas later on, man.
Amen.
That's right. But anyways, all right. I digress. Let's get to the topic, right?
King, Dr. Barbosa, just so they don't say that we shrunk you, we shrunk your head on the visual. Are you allowed to turn down your camera just a little bit so we can see more of you?
Well,
All
she's
right,
she's
we're
got
going
it
to
on
try
a
this again because,
she's got it on a pool
I get
noodle.
technology
Oh,
challenged from
there we
time to
go.
time.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
There?
perfect,
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah, because if not, they'll say we did it to you on purpose.
right? Although she's
I already
definitely
have a big head. My head already takes up too much of a screen already.
well, she's definitely better dressed than either one of us. So there's that.
That's for sure.
But
I
anyways,
was
all right.
Smells
inspired by the
better too.
weather.
There you go. All right, toxic masculinity. I went ahead and did a little bit of research this morning. I just read some different articles and kind of just try to get some insight other than my own on it,
Yeah.
and just to kind of talk about it a little bit more intelligently as opposed to just opinionated, obviously. And the definition, I'm gonna give you the what I found to be the definition, and then I'll give you my interpretation of that, and then we'll all see if we agree on if that being an interpretation. The one that I saw that was actually written down was surpassing emotions or masking distress, maintaining an appearance of hardness, violence as an indicator of power, as in tough guy. What I interpreted that to mean is essentially the stereotypical kind of John Wayne type mentality. There's no crying in baseball. There's that machismo type attitude is what I read that to
Ah,
mean. Is that what you guys agreed to? Is that what you think of when you think of toxic masculinity?
I'll let Barbosa talk first on that one.
Well, I mean, as far as definition goes, that's pretty much what I've seen as well when it comes to what some experts say.
Right.
Um, but then you also have to extrapolate that out to different people groups because different people groups experience different things in culture. So with that, that will also add an additional layer to what is considered
Right.
toxic masculinity. But as far as the male is concerned, um, I believe a lot of that hits the nail on the head simply because that's what most men are taught as boys. You're not allowed to cry.
Yep.
You're not allowed to express any emotions. God forbid if you've ever seen your dad express emotions towards you, give you a hug or anything of that nature. So it gives that impression that that's weakness if you express anything
Sure.
that is remotely emotional, and
Yeah.
which I think is not a good thing.
No, I agree. And you're getting right into it. But first, let's get Louis. Let's get your
Yeah.
definition. Does your
Well,
definition fit that before we get into the
no,
actual
no,
nuts and
actually not.
bolts?
No, because gave that definition. It sounded like you were just giving the definition of masculinity. It didn't sound like you were adding anything that made it toxic.
Ooh,
Uh,
that's really hard to hear you.
yeah, I don't know why that is. I don't
Oh,
know what
no worries. Go ahead.
good filter, but I don't see what the toxic part. What
The
you said
violence as an indicator of power, maintaining the appearance of hardness. Like you don't see that as toxic.
maintaining an image of hardness. No, I just call that guy an asshole or a mamon. You know,
Sure.
he's acting like a mamon, or he thinks he's a tough guy. He thinks he's got this. I mean, I just wouldn't have put those psychological words.
Right.
I don't think they need to be defined like that from that particular definition. Now, I'm
Right.
not saying there's not such thing that could define something that we could call toxic masculinity, but I don't think that when you say some guys lack some emotion. I mean, look, my dad was a hugger. My dad was a kisser. Still is. We still kiss each other. Me and my brother still kiss each other on the cheek. That is. Don't get friendly. But the point is that my dad still carried himself as a man and still
Sure.
uh, didn't like the crying. Nope, doesn't like crying. He'll definitely have some words for you about that. But what he especially didn't like, like if someone would tickle me and I would laugh a lot, my dad hated that they would show that kind of dominance over me and that I would be laughing. So he taught me how to ignore the tickle, which I kind of like because I showed my daughters that. And now, like, you could tickle my oldest daughter, Dalia. She won't even laugh. She learned it. I taught her real young.
Right.
And, you can hold it in. That's something that you can allow or disallow. But I mean, I didn't do it like, all right, you can't express emotion. I mean, I just think when you throw the word toxic in there, I think that sounds toxic.
Yeah. So I'd have to agree with some of that in the sense of,
Bad.
yeah, the sound is really horrible at the moment. But I guess I would have to agree with some of it and disagree with others. I don't like I don't like the two words being put together, toxic and masculinity. To imply anything is inherently toxic having to do with masculinity, I think is a bit of an overreach. Because none of the qualities that we associate with the two. Oh, that sound is so bad.
Bad.
None of the things that we're associating with masculinity to me are inherently masculine. It's just shitty behavior or insecure behavior. It has nothing to do with male or female. Because and if that's the case, then we need to start calling certain things toxic femininity. But I disagree with both of those. Is that I think behavior of an ignorant individual or behavior of a insecure individual can look the same regardless of what gender they are. But I think the overarching storyline here, though, I'm going to have to agree with Barbosa in the sense that, or Dr. Barbosa, he went to school for it. I might as well put it in there. I'm going to agree with you in the sense of the bigger philosophical concept here is I notice a weird thing that happens in society, right? It's a weird thing to navigate as a male, and that is on one hand, when you're around other males, you're it's almost like a dog eat dog kind of world. If you show any sign of weakness, those other boys or men are going to jump on that, and they're going to bully you. They're going to ridicule you. So you learn from an early age to put up that persona of don't mess with me, and that's how you survive. Because if you don't, you're not going to survive intact. I'm not saying you're going to die necessarily, but you're going to have a lot more scars than you intended to have in the sense of emotional or even physical at times. It's a very Lord of the Flies type situation for people. And then as we grow older, that continues to follow us, but it gets even more complicated in the sense of you'll have just as many people in society, and more specifically females, saying that they're disgusted with that type of behavior, that what they call machismo, or in this case toxic masculinity. But at the same token, though, the men that a lot of those women typically go after are the men who are more solid, more strength, non-emotional, more dependable, things of that nature, who exude virilness is what my wife calls it.
Dude, so what?
Virilness.
Dude, what?
Virilness.
Your wife uses that word with you?
She does. She says
You're virile. You're virile.
Yes. That's actually one of the first things she said to me. She said I was her Viking.
That's a real sexy word.
She said I was her Viking, essentially. But my point being is,
I like the Viking part.
It's the mixed signals, right? It's on one hand telling us that's shameful, don't do that, but yet we look at our daily life. That's how we survive, and then that's what's attracting a mate. Oftentimes, is that kind of behavior. And then on the third side of that is typically what I've seen in myself in my own life and just dealing with people. The first thing that is attacked is our manhood when it comes to fights, whether it be with our significant others or even people on the streets. Somehow, some way, that's the first thing that they attack. But yet we're supposed to not defend that. And so it's like a very hard world to navigate as a male. And then, like in my case, I didn't have a father growing up. Like I haven't seen my dad since I was 5. And so like I kind of had to learn the hard way. And I didn't have the luxury of a mentor or a male that I respected that was old enough to be able to say, hey, look, there's a time and a place for that, but then there's a time and a place for this. And so, to me, that's where I think that the focus should be on the behavior, not the masculine or the feminine part.
Right.
Well, you bring up an interesting point there, because when you think about it, say in a case such as yourself, growing up without a father in the home, then where are your masculine cues coming from when you're a child? Either it's going to come from other male figures that are in your family, or it's the mother trying to instill certain character traits in you to make you a good man, right? Yeah. So, but then that's based off of the traditional gender roles that we have. So men are supposed to, take out the garbage, defend the home, be the breadwinner, yada, 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 those things, depending on the age of the parent at the time and who their parents were, those gender roles go forward. So, those thoughts of saying like the individuals that grew up in like post World War II, our grandparents, they had certain gender roles. The woman was supposed to take care of the home. The father was out there making the money and taking care of the family. Then you have those that came through, say around, era where everyone was like rah rah, fighting the power,
Right.
and liberation, and the feminist movement started coming and burning bras and all that stuff, and women were seeking their equality. And then it was that redefining, what does a woman look like?
Right.
And I believe what the feminists have done has perpetuated the roles to have a strong stance in what they feel womanhood should be. And then I believe it did not really leave room for men to adjust fully,
Right.
to be able to compensate. And the thing is that now here we are in the 21st century looking at gender roles and gender equality and things. You're right. Women are attracted to the bad boy syndrome, right? The
Yeah.
ones that sitting up there,
Yeah.
they're buff and they have the bravado and they have the attitude, and they can command an audience, which is great in public, but when you get home, sometimes you don't
Yep.
want all that,
Yeah.
you
but,
know.
but wait a minute, that doesn't happen at home. We all know
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, in the household, when you're trying to raise a family, that's
Right.
not the man you necessarily need in the home.
Well, then
You
Right.
understand what I'm
it should
saying?
be talked about. Maybe the way it should be discussed, if we're going to talk about toxic masculinity, is don't bring the thug out there in here. Like don't
Basically,
bring
Right.
your
yes.
outward personality that you deal with the world when you're out there conquering and bringing home the food or whatever the hell you think you're doing. Just don't bring that in here.
Right.
When you're in here, this is
Hmm.
my domain. You know what I mean? Because I look at my house like my wife's domain. This is like her peaceful place. You know what I mean? So, um, she has a hell of a lot more so in how things are decorated, what it is, how it's going to look, and I respect, I like that. You know what I mean? So I think that's where we can get into the point of something being toxic or not. But I don't have to go to the word toxic. I think it's somebody who's just unbearable and just not listening, and nothing's ever going to be negotiated. It's all their way, or
Right.
just forget about it.
Right.
And if we're talking about somebody being toxic, that is not owned by any particular gender. It's not owned by any particular sexual orientation. They're toxic people of all sexual orientations, classes, colors,
Yep.
height. It doesn't matter. I find it difficult to allow a term like that to be used in such a broad stroke. And then they throw in little things that are very common, like when you said there's no crying in baseball, or shake it off, kid. Like shake it off. Because at the end of the day, some of that stuff is not the reason people were getting abused.
Yeah.
Those little reasons are not the reason somebody's getting hurt, violated, underpaid, being put in a disadvantaged situation, or being abused. So I think it's too broad of a stroke.
On a side note related to this, though, I did do a little bit, like I said, a little bit of reading this morning to kind of just get some different perspectives on this. And I stumbled across a statement that I'm going to kind of do my best to turn into a question, I guess. That really kind of gave me a second to pause, if you will. First and foremost, it related a lot of this, the behavior that we see, the violence and things of that nature, mostly to the younger male, is what they related it to. Their reasoning for that was because as a younger male, your quote unquote manhood is in a more precarious situation, meaning it can be called into question, you could potentially lose it, things of that nature. And what they brought up, which I've never really thought of before, but I thought was interesting, and they said, and instead of making it a question, I'm just going to say it, and then I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on it. And that is, essentially, they boiled it down to, a lot of times for females, womanhood is a physical thing, like a rite of passage, meaning the second you start menstruating, things of that nature, you're becoming a woman now, and that can never be taken from you. Even if somebody were to bring it into question, it's just a laughable thing, like whatever, I'm still a woman. But manhood, on the other thing, it's something you have to earn. It's something that you don't just have, you actually have to obtain it, which means it can also be taken from you at any moment. And so it's that fear of having it ripped from you is what causes them sometimes to lash out and get defensive and angry, is this idea that it can be taken from you. And to me, that's kind of true, and then also it's repeated not only at home oftentimes, but in the world as it is. Like we're all a little too comfortable sometimes with just ripping away somebody's manhood. calling him not a man or something like it's something we have to earn. But anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on that
Well, what's the sentiment to emasculate?
one? The what now?
Well, when you say someone has been emasculated, what's the same thing for a woman? That same
Never heard of
terminology.
it. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that does exist for men. You
Yep.
can be emasculated.
Yep.
So where's the sameness for women?
I don't know any.
But the thing, and now you're getting into anthropology, right? Which is not my field of excellence or expertise. Uh, but you have to think about it from the standpoint of what happened when you had other nations come in and conquering other societies. So you have one civilization coming in and conquering, and the way that they showed dominance was by basically dominating the male.
Right.
So if you could dominate the male and make the male subservient, then everyone else will follow because the male is the natural leader, right?
Right.
So when you think about it, this is what has been ingrained in us as a people because of what has happened in the past with the many wars that's been fought over the course of time. Even if you go back to biblical times, when they took over other people groups, the first thing they did was that they made the men eunuchs because they didn't want them to populate or procreate with their people.
And
so they would. What was that now?
And they always rape the women.
And they always raped the women because they wanted to show that dominance. I can take your woman and I can take away your physicality of manhood to make you feel like you're less than. So now what that has translated to into our modern day is that maybe they're not taking away your physicality of who you are as a man, but they psychologically dominate you in other ways. And when you think about the psychological domination, and that's how they can make men feel less than, because you attack their insecurities. And if your insecurity is tied into what you define yourself to be as a man, whether it's your physical prowess, whether or not it's your income, whether or not it's your status or something of that nature, then that is where it comes into play, where people are now fighting to maintain what their definition of manhood is, depending on whatever age and stage you are. That's just my opinion. I'm female, so I can't really,
No.
speak
That's why you're
otherwise,
here.
but
That's exactly what we're here.
Yeah, that's why you're here. We didn't want to have a bunch of dudes over here talking about manhood.
Yeah.
Well, because it's interpreted by everybody.
We just measure up against each other. We just always like,
think about it. Even in the caveman era, the man, got clubbed over the head and dragged home. It's like, hey, that's my, I'm conquering.
That's how I got Dana to come home with me.
But no, and there's definitely something to that, right? Because one of the things I was reading was they were trying to blame, like, for instance, they were saying a lot of the mass shootings that are taking place was toxic masculinity.
Aren't men.
They were saying it was the men that was perpetrating. It was boys. But my thing was,
those are mama's boys.
It had nothing to do with their genitalia or lack thereof. It was more so to do with their response to this feeling of oppression or this feeling of inadequacy. It has nothing to do with that's not a male trait. Because if that was the case, we'd all be doing it. I don't have any desire to walk into school and shoot anybody at the moment. And so,
insecurity is insecurity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that
but then you also bring up a good point with that whole when you said oppression, people feeling oppressed, because then now you're getting into whole type of societal type of situations that's going on outside of saying what's in the inner circle. No, you can't even say that, because what happens in society happens in smaller circles. So when you go from looking at how certain people groups are viewed in society, and then you filter that back into what's going on, say, in our schools, if individuals are feeling as if they're ostracized and they're being oppressed, either because of their sexual orientation or because of the color of their skin or because of their intellectual prowess, so to speak, then they feel powerless to a certain extent in defending themselves. So then they go to the extreme of defense. And that's the whole, art of war type of situation. I know that wasn't his whole crux in the book, because he wasn't advocating war, but the whole aspect of it is that individuals go to that extreme of thinking, well, if I can't reason with you, if I can't have a proper discussion about this, or if I don't feel like I'm equipped to be able to defend myself in a discussion, then I'm going to have to go physically and try to defend myself in that manner.
Well, that was one
Well,
of
let
the
me
other.
ask.
I was just saying real
Okay.
quick. That was one of the other things that was notated actually was like the discrepancy of affluency, meaning in the more affluent communities, a lot of times they can throw their weight around with their finances and things of that nature to show their power, if you will. But sometimes in the lower affluent areas, they didn't have that ability, so they had to resort to more physical means to have that same kind
Hmm.
of feeling, if you will. Louis, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think a lot of this comes because like we talk about all the time, Trinity. That often when there is oppression and when there is abuse to a grave degree, when the pendulum swings back the other way, it often goes too far. And I think when you talk about toxic masculinity, that's a perfect example of the pendulum swinging too far. Because look, I get why uh, you can find a grouping of anything. I can find a grouping of men who are women haters, and I can find a grouping of women who are men haters. And if you get within those subgroups, and I think they are a minority in both respects, you can sit there and just bash the other sex to death, and it sounds really horrible. But at the end of the day, I think what you said earlier about what a woman is really attracted to, I know what Dana is most attracted to me by what she tells me. And a lot of the things that she may be attracted to me about may not be the same things that another woman is attracted to somebody else. You know what I mean? And that's okay. And
Right.
I think that when we're looking for some sort of sense of equality or don't abuse me or I'm allowed to be different, yes, you are. But you don't need to prove that I'm wrong or something is bad about me to get your equalness or to
Right.
feel same as. If we want equality, then you have to be called an asshole as equal as I'm called an asshole. You have to be as stupid as I am sometimes stupid. And so when we get to a point where you're not allowed to put down a certain group, or you're not allowed to say something negative to a certain group, or you're not allowed to talk a certain way because that's now going to make you Hitler-esque or whatever the hell you are, then I think that's when the pendulum is swinging too far. And look, there's a lot of cavemanish stuff about me, but Dana and I laugh about it. It's funny. You know what I mean? Because I don't take it so serious that I have abused my daughters. I have two lovely daughters that I watch the kind of men that they have that they're attracted to, and that they have. They both are attracted to very nice guys that are emotionally available, just like I'm emotionally available. Now, to me, they're not as masculine as I am the way I act, but that's a generational thing. And I think sometimes we just have to allow the generations to kind of just bleed away. People like me are going away. Don't worry
Yep.
about it. I'm 50 years old. Let me be an old, crankety old man and let me just go away. But that doesn't make me wrong. That just makes me old and outdated.
Yep.
Fired.
Yeah. No. I mean, I agree.
I'm not asking for that 23-year-old movement person to be attracted to me. I'm not attracted to you either.
No. I mean, I agree with that, and like, and that's a struggle too, right? As men, as we get older and we have kids and stuff, we have to kind of keep that in perspective, right? Because I
Yeah.
too, I grew up, up in like the Montana rancher things, man, where if like you cut your finger off, you put it on ice and finish your day's work, kind of a thing.
That's it. That's
Now,
it.
obviously, as a husband and a father, I think that's retarded. Now, like go to the hospital, get your finger put back on. But I grew up with that kind of mentality, where I
Well,
understand it. Like, I mean, just yesterday I was doing stuff around the house, and my wife was like, "Dude, you need to slow down." I'm like, "I'm fine. I'll just get it over with." Like, so I get it, and I can appreciate it. I don't think that's a bad thing. And yes, I do try to instill some of that into my son. I don't. Well, Lou, I know you don't have a son. Dr. Barbosa, do you have a son or no? I
No,
know.
I have a daughter.
Okay. So I do have a son, and I have struggled at times with how much quote unquote wokeness do I want to raise him with, and how much of my mentality do I, and I've tried to do that balancing act. I'm I was raised by a single mom, and she did her best, and some could argue that my mom was more of a man than some people were. You know,
she's
she,
more of a man than a lot of people are.
yeah, I mean, full disclosure for anybody who's watching, so I'm not insulting my mom. My mom had a very less than. My mom had a rough upbringing, and then one of the jobs she made a career for 25 years was working in the prison systems, and she watched both men and women and had to break up fights and things of that nature. So my mom was not somebody to be tangled with, and at
Right.
times she definitely brought that home. And so even though the woman in my life was a very strong-willed, independent person, and I and there she is. My mom saying, "Hey, all love here, all love." But so yeah, I've taken what I've learned from her, what I've learned from my own successes and mistakes because I've made them, and I try to do my best to instill that in my son. But I do catch myself sometimes having to stop for a minute and be like, hold up, is this really the right way of doing it? Because I don't want him to be soft, and the reason why I don't want him to be soft, or what I say to be soft, how I define it, is
Right.
is I don't want him struggling around other people his age and other boys. I don't want him getting his ass whooped every day because they view him as weak.
Hmm.
Because I think at that age and in adolescence, it is weak. As an adult, I don't see it as weak. But I'm also a grown
Hmm.
man, and I'm also 6'3", a very large human being. Most people are not going to try to fight me. But at now 9 years old and soon to be in his teenage years, he's going to be challenged an awful lot. And the more he does things that are perceived as weak, the more he's going to be challenged, the harder life he's going to have. And I don't want him to have that. And so I
Even in
do.
business, though, Trinity, even as an adult, listen, we don't get in physical fights anymore or anything like that. But even
Yeah.
in business negotiations,
Oh yeah.
even in purchases, large
Yep.
purchases, look, they talk differently to my wife than they talk to me. It's you see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You see the way they're
Of course.
communicating with one person. Look, that's just the world, right?
Hmm.
And just because, I mean, you're struggling with a guy, I'm glad, I have daughters, and I thought I was going to struggle more with daughters, but I kind of raise them like boys, like they're rough and like you play around with stuff. Because same thing, I don't want them to be weak either, and I don't,
Yeah.
but that's because I don't want them to be pushovers or require someone else, like be needy of someone else to be successful. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to be able to be strong in your own right, but also appreciate and respect both sexes. And so that's the key. I think when you teach children to respect both sexes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Don't attack a guy for being, you know, what you think a guy is acting like, and don't attack a girl. Don't be a girl hater. Don't hate women because
Exactly.
there's a lot of females that hate women. So I wanted to make sure, I'm
Yeah.
hoping my daughters don't hate women, and they don't. So that's the good thing.
Yeah.
And another thing is when you look at it from the parenting aspect of things, we parent from the point of reference that we were parented,
Sure.
right? So because that was the first example of parenting that we had, but now we have to parent in light of 21st century philosophy, right?
Yes. Some of it
Because
good, some of it not
Right.
so good.
Right.
like back in the day, our parents were going off of the child psychologists of the time to raise us through the 70s and 80s, right?
Dr.
And yeah, right. I
Yeah,
was
I
trying to
have his
remember
book
his name.
actually.
And now here we are in the 21st century, and we don't have anyone speaking that voice, right?
Right.
So we don't have, even those of us that are saying younger parents, meaning that we are older individuals with younger children. Louis, you already passed. Your kids have graduated, but
Yeah.
Trinity and I here are sitting here with
Good luck with
with
that.
tweens,
Well, I've got the
with
whole gamut,
tweens now,
man. I've
right?
got 9, 10, 15, and now 20.
Exactly. I mean, I got a 10-year-old going on 30. So,
Exactly.
but we're parenting in this age of 21st century philosophy, and in the 21st century philosophy, if it feels good, I'm going to do it, right? There's no bounds, there's no holds, there's no realm of perceived right or wrong, because if it feels good to me, I'm going to do it. And that's the pervasive thought that's going around now for young people. I mean, before it was YOLO, and I'm saying, if I say YOLO, I'm an old person, right? But it's YOLO evolved into what we have today.
Right.
So is now, how do we parent our next generation so that, like what Louis was saying, we respect each other first and foremost for who we are, not because, oh, she has a big butt, or he has this, that, and the other. He has bling or whatever, or what's the term now, they're Gucci or whatever the situation may be,
Bougie.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, because a lot of our young people now are looking at the outward appearances of things. And then when you look at it from the standpoint of males together, especially in African American culture, who has the freshest Jordans, is who is this, who is that, who is the other. And it's all on the externals. No one delves nowhere past the externals and what people look like on their Instagram, and to get into the heart of who the individuals are. And so that's where we need to be as far as trying to parent in this next generation, because if we don't have a Dr. Spock of the 21st century, then who's actually going to be that prevailing voice to help
Dr.
guide.
Barbosa.
Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil
Yeah,
is.
right.
Oh Lord, no.
Well, you know what?
Oh,
You're actually touching on what I feel to
Look,
be you're touching on what I feel to be actually one of the solutions. Because we've already, the problem is quite evident. We've already established it. But to me, I think one of the solutions, not the solution, but one of them, is instead of criticizing the male gender, if you will, and all the things that we disagree with, because that is very subjective, obviously. One person hates,
oh,
another person one loves. But instead, I think we should praise the good stuff that they are doing. Instead of praising, hey, you got the newest Jordans. A very funny story, or not funny, but just an interesting story, right? Like, I've met women in my life, and I never wanted to settle down with anybody. Marriage was not on my radar at all. But oddly enough, and I don't think it's a coincidence, the woman that I ended up with, her very first introduction to me when I first met her was not on the list of the normal things I would have, right? Normally it would say about my tattoos or, I used to ride sport bikes and all. No, her very first interaction with me, I barely knew her. We were communicating briefly on social media, and she actually submitted me to be a Rad Dad. And Rad Dads was a group that they were basically spotlighting men who were taking care of their children and stepping up to the plate. And I didn't know it at the time, but that really meant a lot to me. Like the fact that she was appreciating, not not in a bad way, I guess. Like too often I see it done like, oh yeah, good for you, as if like we're doing some remarkable thing. No, I'm a parent, right? Like parents are supposed to do this. I don't want any extra credit
hmm
because I'm a man doing it because that's my job. So she wasn't doing it in a condescending way. She was legitimately like, look, you're stepping up, you're handling business, and you're being a good father, and I want to respect that. At the time, it was like, oh, that's cool. I saw what she was doing, but now that I look back on it, I really appreciated that. Like that's what she focused in on was the fact that I was being a good father. And so I
right.
think in today's world, part of the solution is we all like, if you take your dog and you're potty training your dog, we should all know this by now. If you don't want your dog to pee outside, you don't beat him up when he's inside and does the wrong thing. You give him a treat and reward him for doing the right thing. The same thing with men,
hmm
right? Don't if you want me to change my behavior, so instead of ridiculing me, criticizing me, and chastising me for doing the wrong thing, when I do the right thing, applaud me and give me encouragement, so I know that that is associated with something
Right.
good. And I think
Right.
that's part of the solution. And I think as a society, that's what we need to focus on.
Well, because if you're going to
Yeah.
push me, I'm going to push back.
Yeah,
That's just
of
natural
course.
behavior. You go up
hmm
to anybody and push them, and they're going to react to your pushing them.
Yep.
So absolutely, I agree with you.
And then I believe the other part of that also is to embrace the fullness of emotionalism or emotionality within say your sons and your brothers and your uncles and what have you, because that's the other aspect when you, especially when you have older generations that have never been able to fully embrace the fullness of their emotions, then they're stunted, they're emotionally stunted. So they know how to express when they're displeased, they know how to express when they're full out angry, and to a certain extent praise, you got to work for the praise, right? You're not gonna you're not gonna always hear, the whole like, son, I'm proud of you, daughter, I'm proud of you type of situation. But anytime you piss somebody off, oh, you're going to hear that, right?
Sure.
So the thing is that we have to be more cognizant in that whole aspect of what you were speaking to. We have to embrace the fullness of emotions for all of our children, because if we say it's okay for our daughter to cry and not okay for our son to cry, then you're stunting him emotionally. And now when he feels upset, he shifts to anger, as opposed to just saying, oh, I'm crying because I scraped my knee. I'm sitting there, I'm smashing a window because I scraped my knee. So I think there has to be some balance with that in order for us to be able to have children that then grow into adults that are well rounded, that understand that emotions have a place and that they don't have to wear their emotions on their sleeve all the time, but understand that there's a time and place for everything. Because if we
Right.
don't know how to manage all of it, then all you're going to do is bottleneck one and let the other one roam free.
Well, see, right there, there's the key, though. Right there, you said there's a time and place for everything. So just like in that statement, there's no crying in baseball. That's probably not the and we have to be okay with that. I'm not saying there's no crying.
hmm
No, I'm just using that as a phrase. But there are places like that you get just hold it in for a bit. We get private, then you cry there. Now talk to me about it, because there are some children that over dramatize the situation. So
There's some
when
adults that do that,
someone
right?
else tries to
Yes.
parent, when someone else is trying to parent someone else's kids by saying, "Oh, you shouldn't have said that. Shouldn't have told them to shake it off." Well, what if that parent is telling them to shake it off because that little kid believes it, uses it, gets over dramatic, falls, acts like the whole world is crumbling just because he barely stubbed his toe? Listen, that's not your kid. You don't know the whole story, and that's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. So when we use these kinds of these little tidbits to define a toxic man, I think that unfortunately we're again, I'm going to say it again. It's a broad stroke to offend a lot of guys that I think are very good guys. I think Trinity's a great guy. I think I'm a great guy. Am I a little macho sometimes? Absolutely. Is Trinity a little macho sometimes? Absolutely.
Of
But
course.
luckily, we found women that love our machismo as much as they love our emotional ability. And we are very emotionally available young men. Young men. The
No.
young man.
I'm the
But
young one here,
at the
definitely.
same time, yeah, I'm kind of shocked that when my kids will say like, "Dad, I've never seen you cry," because I am emotionally available. I'm just like, but what would they see me cry about? I can't
Right.
think of something that But I'm pretty sure that when something bad happens to my family, my parents, they're gonna see me cry that day. I'm not opposed to it. It's just that it's just not a normal thing within my life. It doesn't make me toxic. It just simply makes it that I grew up in a time where that just wasn't as appreciated or allowed. And because that wasn't appreciated or allowed, I found other ways to deal with that emotion. Now, luckily, I had a great father. My father was very emotionally available. He was very nice. My mom would say she's parched and he's running out to the store to get her something to drink. And I would be like, "Dad, that's not how it's done here in the United States." I would point to Archie Bunker and Fred Sanford and George Jefferson, and I would say, "Dad, those men are men." I said, "You're too nice to mom. You gotta be rough on her. You gotta tell her how it is." And he used to just look at me and laugh. He goes, "You're so stupid, Louis." He goes, "You have no idea." And
Exactly.
he, I used to think that the television that I watched back in the day, the Archie Bunkers, the George Jeffersons, the Fred Sanfords, that's what a man was. So I get that we had to have different kinds of men, but that doesn't mean now we all got to be Will and Grace over here. You know what I mean? It's just like let's have all types of man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All types are okay.
And that's the biggest thing, right? That it's okay.
Hmm.
And I think that that's the thing that we have to kind of focus on is we for whatever reason in today's society it does feel at times as if not only are we dying out, but we're also being ridiculed on the way out. Meaning, like,
Yeah.
that not only are we just outdated, but though you're wrong. Like, no, I'm not
Right.
wrong. Like,
And at the same time, Trinity, the number one selling book and the number one movie, the 50 Shades of Grey, is
exactly.
out there exploding.
Yeah.
And yet they're all looking at guys and, "Oh, guys, don't act like this. Don't act like
Yeah.
this." It's like, what are you guys dreaming of and fantasizing of? I'm sorry. Are you fantasizing about a guy who can make a good Americano latte or whatever the hell he's
Exactly.
drinking? Is that what you're fantasizing about?
Well,
Because
that right
mixed
there.
messages over here.
Well, that goes to show the mixed messages, right? And I've had numerous discussions with this, and we even did a show about the Me Too movement when we did our show on it. Like I just saw somebody post yesterday on Facebook. I was scrolling down, and they were saying it was like a little cartoon, and it was a guy who was showing how to deal with a woman with attitude, and he just grabbed her and started kissing her or something. I was like, yeah, in today's world, that's called Me Too. Like, so the woman is
Yeah.
saying that's what she wanted, but at the same token, you're also telling men, to ask for permission. And the thing that we have to understand is just like, in a sense, women are different, right? Some women want that aggressiveness, some women don't. It's hard
Right.
for us sometimes to discern the
Right.
difference. But on a man's side, there are some men who are more aggressive than others, or men who have more, virilness than others, and
Right.
that's okay too. Like
It's that
that's
word again.
it's an
Well,
actual word.
just a point of clarity. Just a point of clarity. If somebody's gonna grab me up and kiss me like that, I'd rather it be my husband and not a stranger in the street.
Well, yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
that's
So,
a big one. Yeah, I do not
Well, that's the
advocate.
thing. When you bring up the Me Too movement with that, I have to separate it as well. I'm like, wait.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
Too's about doing it
I'm not
with
advocating
no
for. Come on
permission.
now.
You have no permission.
No,
But if your wife gives you permission,
sure,
and
of
that's a
course,
whole other
of
ballgame.
course, of course. I thought that went without saying, but anyways.
Well, no, obviously we had to say
yeah, we
it.
got you have to clarify for some people.
Well, the whole, we did a show on the Me Too movement, essentially. Feel free to go back and check it out at youtube.com. But no, I think, but I think that's the big thing is I think there's a generation of men out there that do kind of hear the word toxic masculinity, and we're immediately like, what? We're getting tired of being told that we're bad because we feel the way that we feel. And I think it's time for us to kind of reevaluate that. And I think I
Yeah.
do agree with Dr. Barbosa in the sense of, the way we solve it or moving forward is we have to look at our younger generations and stop treating them as this toxic masculine little boy who needs to be dealt with. Instead, look at him as like, okay, he's been hurt and he doesn't know how to deal with his feelings, so let me help him deal with
Amen.
those, as opposed to
Yeah.
adding to those problems, right? Because the thing that I think a lot of people misinterpret sometimes, and in my own life I've seen it, especially in my younger days when I had more of an anger streak in me. People oftentimes confuse and think that crying means more pain than the person who's angry. They don't realize that's the same emotion. It's just being handled
Mm-hmm.
differently. The same thing that made you cry is the same thing that made me angry. The difference is you handle it in a much more skillful way than I do. Probably because you were given those skills and I wasn't. But it doesn't change. Like your hurt isn't more valid than my hurt because I'm angry and punching something and you're crying. I
Yeah,
just
and
go ahead.
no, no, no. I wanted you to keep going with that point because I wanted to also put another stamp on it, saying also, uh, just because you deal with your pain internally and you become depressive and suicidal, it's the same emotion when someone becomes explosive and homicidal.
Yes.
It's really a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the same pains. It's just that some people are flighters and some people are fighters,
Yeah.
and so we are naturally very different
Yeah.
in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. And I think we need to uh, allow this inclusivity to mean everybody, not just inclusive to those that agree with you. And we've said that on many other topics.
Yes, we have.
Inclusivity and equal is not about those just because to bring your people up. Like this is not just all because it is Cinco de Mayo, so it's like Mexican Day, right? So all that is, by the way, we beat the French. Who didn't beat the French, by the way? So that meant nothing. That means nothing to a Mexican, but apparently in the United States, that's all about
It's
us.
an excuse to
Apparently,
drink.
it's an excuse for you to drink Coronas and tacos. But go ahead, go to a Mexican restaurant, give money to Mexicans. I appreciate it. So anyway, the point is that just because you belong to a subgroup and you fight for the rights of that subgroup doesn't make the other group wrong in all ways. And I think that's the problem with the pendulum swinging like that.
Yep.
But I got to be honest with you, Trinity. I don't hear a lot of people use the word toxic masculinity in normal everyday conversation. When I hear
Yeah.
somebody use it, it's usually somebody from a subgroup and trying to define something that they're still holding resentment about. And I think the key point is if you're out there and you're very angry about any grouping of individuals, heal yourself first. Because when you are telling us or me or anyone else how to be different while you're still in pain, all I see is your pain. All I see is your insecurity. All I see is your fear. All I see is your anger. And I'm not hearing the message. And I want to hear your message. But I think in order to hear your message, if you're going to teach love, you got to start with love.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
And if you're gonna teach understanding, you definitely have to start with understanding.
I agree. So just to touch base for some of the comments, I see people commenting, but I'm not ignoring you. My mother actually chimed in and says, I think teaching different behaviors for different surroundings, which I think she did. Well, she tried to. I didn't always hear that lesson. But and then Ashley Miller said, I think it boils down to authenticity or inauthenticity. Are the ego and shadow aspects of the subconscious driving the behavior? Yeah, that was a big one. I do think though that as I'm always stating, hurt people, and so
Yeah,
when I see somebody lashing out and violent, when I see somebody, even with the shootings, and we've already done a show on compassion for the shooters, that's
right.
what I see. Is I see a hurt person hurt somebody. That doesn't excuse the behavior by any means,
Right.
but
Right.
Mm-hmm.
two things can be true, right? It can be abhorrent behavior, but it could also be somebody who was hurt and didn't know how to handle that pain and took it out on the people around them. We all
Right.
do it every day. Maybe not to those extremes, but we all
Right.
do. We've all been in a situation where we're struggling unskillfully with something in our lives and we lash out at somebody we love and care about, or even a stranger for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that person who, didn't hold the door open for you at 7-Eleven when you're walking out and you're like, thank you, you give them attitude. It's not because of that, because at the end of the day, nobody cares about that. It's because you're holding on to something that's been going on that you haven't dealt with skillfully.
Right.
And
Hmm.
so that sentiment, I think needs to carry forward, and that's where the whole internal peace comes in, which is obviously why we're doing this show on spirituality and inner peace. Is you got to have something to solve it, right? We can't just sit around all day long kicking the tire saying it's flat. Like we actually got to fix it at some point. And I think
Right.
that,
And,
Yeah.
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, and if you held the door open and got mad because someone didn't say thank you, then you held the door open for the wrong reasons.
Agreed.
If you're going to hold the door open, you hold the door open because it's the right thing to do. If you respect somebody, it's because it's the right thing to do. If you're nice to somebody, it's because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You don't wait for someone to be nice to you for you to be nice. You don't wait for someone to be respectful to you for you to be respectful. And you don't wait for someone to do something for you before you do something for them. You're doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Correct.
None of those things should be earned. All those things are gifts that I give you. I give you trust. I give you respect. I give you kindness, and I give you all that. You want to give me something else in return? That's fine. That's on you. You own it. I'm not going to own your hate.
Yeah, no, I
Hmm.
agree. The person who gets mad at that, once again, yeah, they're not doing it to do the nice thing. They're doing it because they want that gratification. They want that acknowledgement.
Yeah. By the way, you want to see some toxic masculinity? Watch this. Hey, Dana.
Oh gosh,
Dana, my drink is empty.
oh god. See, my wife would be like, well, you better fill it then. I have a toxic femininity in my house, man.
She's gonna poke her head and she goes, "Are you on the air talking to me like that?"
Exactly. So on Friday when we do our show, Louis gonna have a black eye right here. What
Oh
happened?
no, then we're gonna have to do a domestic violence talk.
Yeah,
No,
right.
no. But
All right, so we got a few minutes. Dr. Barbosa, I'll let you start off. You got anything that you would any parting thoughts, any parting wisdom that you'd like to give everybody here on this topic?
well, Louis had a lead in there, and I wanted to kind of piggyback on what he was saying, from the standpoint of, I don't have to take on. He was saying, I don't have to take on your hate, and you can't. This is something I freely give. You can't take this away from me, the love that I have.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch that paradigm and let's think about it in the terms of masculinity, like what we were speaking of earlier, and in the context of it being taken from you. No one can take away your masculinity. It's
Amen.
something that you freely
Yep.
give away. So the thing is that if someone is challenging you in any manner, shape, or form, yes, you have a right to defend, but don't defend from a place of insecurity, thinking that someone is taking away the very thing that you have put in place as a definition of manhood. The thing would be is to really be sternly solid in who you are as a man, as a male, as an individual, and then take it from that place. Don't base your definitions on temporary things.
Right.
That's the main thing, because
Amen.
when you do, now you're forced into a situation of defending, saying your property, you're defending your land. But if you base it on internal structures and not so much the external, no one can ever take away who you feel you are as a male.
Right.
That's what I feel. That's my thought.
And that's why we have you on here because you're speaking better than most men can on that one. I love that. All right, Louis, what you got, man?
Well, I'm going to say this. I think, in a time where we define everything, we compartmentalize everything, don't mistake in somebody else's confidence for cockiness, or their cockiness for confidence, however you want to put it. The point is that confidence is a very good thing. We want you to be confident. Confidence is attractive. Confidence is sexy. Confidence is what we want. We want it in women. We want it in men. When you're no longer confident, that's the problem. Some of you are overconfident. Some of you are too cocky. I love to play cocky, but I just like to make people laugh. At the end of the day, my family knows how I really am. The people around me, the people I spend a lot of time with, know how I really am. But you're allowed to play different little pieces in different scenarios. Don't overgeneralize what you see. Sometimes you're seeing a snippet of people's lives and you make an overall judgment on how they really are based on whatever you perceive them to be, based on your history, your pains, your abuses, your stuff. Heal your stuff before you generalize out there. All I'm saying is I want everybody to feel comfortable in their own skin. I really do. Because when you're not comfortable in your own skin, you're going to affect my life one way, shape, or another. You're going to drive erratically and maybe hurt me. You're going to treat me poorly out there. You're going to rip me off. You're going to do something to somebody when you're not comfortable in your own skin. But when you're comfortable in your own skin, you listen better, you act better, you're more polite, you're more friendly. So stop pointing this way and blaming the whole world for how you are. Take responsibility for how you are, however that is. But at the end of the day, Hug yourself. How's that for less toxic masculinity? Hug yourself. Love.
Wow.
Peace. You see how corny that sounds? Gone.
Well, all right
I'm
then.
not saying don't hug. I just think it sounds
Sure.
ridiculous when you force me to have to say it like that.
Sure. All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you everybody for watching. I'm getting ready to do my little 3 tips here. But for those of you who are on Facebook Live at the moment, please feel free to stick around after the outro video. And if you got any questions you want to ask, or just you want to hear us continue to pontificate for a little bit, by all means. And the other thing I'll say before I get into the 3 tips is don't underestimate the value of mentorship. If you do have a son in your life, or a daughter for that matter, but today was about masculinity, so I'm going to gear it towards that. If you do have a son in your life, and if you are a single mother, or if you don't have a positive male influence in your life, there's nothing wrong with reaching out and trying to find that. I don't know all the avenues that exist at the moment. I know when I was a kid, my mom put me in the Big Brothers Big Sisters Association, and I was at the Boys and Girls Club as well. And definitely there's some worries there. There's obviously predators out there in the world, but there are some good people as well. And I think, speaking from a male's perspective who didn't necessarily have the best role models growing up, don't underestimate the power of mentorship. Even now as an adult, I have mentors in my life, and I mentor others, and try to give them and instill in them what it does mean to be a man and how to conduct yourself appropriately. So, having said that, let me get to my 3 tips here. So for those of you who watched before, this is the area of the show where we try to kind of give you some sort of an action plan, if you will, to summarize what we've been talking about today. So the first tip I have is, use this as an opportunity to think about your own definitions and your own expectations of what it means to be a man. Are some of them outdated? Are some of them based upon your own biases? Are they legitimate? We all have them. And so I encourage you to look inwards and try to figure out where they came from and if they're healthy or not. Second one is, if you find somebody who you feel is not living up to what your expectation of a man is, and you decided that it is a healthy thing, instead of trying criticism and chastising them, why don't you try encouragement? When they do something that you think is more along the lines of what you think is acceptable or healthy, encourage that behavior. Let them know that you enjoyed that. Let them know you like that and why. Because that will then help them learn and understand, hey, this is how I'm supposed to act. Because I can tell you as a man myself, there's been many times my wife will say something to me, or she'll criticize a certain behavior, and I legitimately have zero clue of what she's expecting me to do, quote unquote, right. It's not until she tells me her perspective and says, hey, this is how I perceive that, this is how you can do it differently, that I say, oh, okay, well, now that I know that, then I can live up to that expectation. Which brings me to my third one. And the third one is, remember perspectives, man. Perspectives are very subjective. Everybody has a perspective. You can't assume that somebody else's perspective is lined with yours, or even against yours for that matter. It's just different. And it doesn't necessarily mean yours is right or wrong, or theirs is right or wrong. It's just different. We have our perspectives, and they come from our own experiences, our own backgrounds, and our own lives. And they can be changed, though, right? And what changes that perspective is an organic kind of thing where we come to a realization. Nobody on earth has ever come to that realization through being told that they're wrong. Instead, we come to that realization by connecting things. Like something happened, we get praise for it, we realize, wow, okay, I like that. Then maybe that's what I should do from now on. And so keep that in mind, that everybody's got a different perspective, and try to understand someone else's before you start to ridicule or criticize. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you stick around afterwards to kind of hear us chat a little bit. But in the meantime, now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.